So in our industry, it's rare that you team up with somebody that's in a different facet of the industry and stick together for decades. I am truly honored to have our next guest here, Jeff Eichorn, top architect for Debaker Design. One of my favorite things about Jeff is that he came from a very large corporate-run firm. He spent half of his career there and then ventured off to the more boutique lifestyle of an architect. And so I always have appreciated that he's been on both sides of the spectrum and brings with a wealth of knowledge in a format that most people can digest very easily. Jeff, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
In my opinion, renovation and construction and home upgrades in general have been slightly paused. I know your firm hasn't seen it, but in general, we've seen a slight pause throughout the COVID years because people were very intimidated of the costs, the delays, the supply chain issues, all of that good stuff. People are getting much more comfortable with it now. So what are you starting to see in terms of the current trends in your line of work?
COVID really started a need for home offices. Right. So
that
everyone
is the
was
understatement of the year, I think.
Yes, right. So actually when COVID started, that started a lot of projects and finding ways for people to be able to work at home. And that's continued because even though COVID's let down, a lot of businesses took a look at how often do they need people actually in an office, and they could save money or people have more flexibility. And consequentially, more people are working remote, some full time, and some just a few days a week, some in the office a couple days, at home a few days. In either case, there's really a need for a dedicated office space in their house. So we've been getting a lot of projects where people need us to come and space plan a little bit on the interior, reorganize some of the rooms, or maybe an addition. But really looking for something besides having that extra bedroom, it's their office, it's a guest bedroom, it's an exercise room, it's a laundry folding room, right? They don't want that. They want a space where they can do a Zoom call and there's not a blurred out Peloton in the background, right? So it's a dedicated space, not in the basement, it's on a main floor, something that they could use now and in the future. And it doesn't seem like that's going to be going away anytime soon. So a lot of home offices, I think.
Super. No, and I obviously it's the new way of the world, right?
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
live differently in our homes. Remote work is a very big aspect of it. I mean, I love the way that you kind of mentioned what I call the multifaceted room, right? Everyone says, I need that extra bedroom because it needs to take on all these roles. But the fact that really people are prioritizing that. Is there anything else that you've seen that has been a kind of a more popular thing, whether it's in maybe kitchen remodels or wanting more storage or exercise rooms, as you talked about?
Yeah, I mean, as far as other spaces like that, I mean, especially in the city with so many old houses, a lot of projects are going to be mudrooms, getting that extra storage, because most of them just have a back door that goes right into the kitchen, which doesn't work great. You need a spot for all the boots and shoes and coats. We have 4 seasons for sure. So a lot of mudroom projects are popular. And just getting that extra storage. In addition to that, we see a lot of, again, because of the old homes, a lot of projects involve redoing a kitchen, but really having it open up to a family room space, right? Sometimes it's not necessarily the full open concept, as we'd say, but having a family room that's adjacent, a little more accessible from the kitchen, where you can keep an eye on the kids while you're cooking and things of that nature, and it works a lot better for modern families. A lot of that type of a project.
No, I think and that makes sense, right? As I say, we spend more time in our homes now, and we want to utilize the space a little bit better.
Absolutely.
The formal spaces are kind of teetering off a little bit more. We don't necessarily want to give them up, but we certainly don't spend our time in it, but kind of making the house more usable.
Absolutely. We're definitely looking to maximize the use of all the spaces in your house, right? The living room, the place that we would say is a spot for your grandmother's furniture to be on display.
Is that with or without the plastic wrap?
It could be either way.
I should preface, my grandmother would never have plastic wrap on her furniture, but I had friends growing up who did.
Yeah, right. You got to keep it clean. Every spot needs to be used, right? We don't have enough room in the house to have a spot that isn't used at all, or it's used maybe a few hours a year, right? For when you're entertaining. Similar with formal dining rooms, right? Those are used less and less often, and more of it's a space for everyday eating where you want to use it. So really looking at the square footage of your house, and, with building costs being higher and higher all the time, what can we do within the space that we've got? How can you maybe reorganize, moving some walls around so that you're using every part of your house on a weekly basis?
For certain. No, that's great. What would you say as people are kind of navigating these roads? What are the biggest mistakes you see consumers either doing or that you're catching before they do?
Yeah. TV's above the fireplace. Not really. It's just a pet peeve of mine. I really dislike that. But I know people love it. And now they have some TVs that are like gallery where they display art and it looks very pretty.
Getting better.
Not my favorite. But seriously, though, I guess I'd say when they're doing projects, it's important to really consider not just your immediate needs, but the future and how that's going to grow. We find a lot when people want to do a project, there's usually some sort of problem they need to solve right then. What is this? Because they have little kids and the little kids are in another room and they need them closer to the kitchen. So we're doing little playrooms or things. How do we do this so that it can be a room or a space that will adapt, right? Do we do a room that can be a playroom for the kids now? Then it can become a homework room for the kids. Then it becomes a teen flop room as they get older. And then when they're gone, it's a spot for mom and dad to maybe sit and have a cup of coffee or something. So
is the teen flop room, is that a professional term?
It's a professional term. Yep. Learned that in school for sure, where the teens will flop.
No, and I love that you hit in on that. I always try and express to my clients, the most important thing to me in a property is flexibility.
Yeah.
Because we know what we need today.
Yeah.
We know we need something different a few years from now, but we don't exactly know what that is. But if we have a property that can evolve with us,
yes,
just like a renovation that can evolve, that gives us staying power. And staying power can be a fantastic thing.
Absolutely. And we see that a lot, especially we find with young families, right? When we've had young little kids, it's all consuming in your life, right? So it's hard to see the past. You kind of feel like this is my life for the near future. So when you're doing that mudroom edition that we're talking about, the kids don't have as much stuff right now, but as they get older, they're doing 2 or 3 sports. You've got all sorts of sporting equipment and bags. So how does that mudroom work from when they're little kids to when they're older and you need that space? So we want it to work without doing another renovation project in a few years.
For certain. And that's where I'm going to kind of turn this a little bit. I should preface first and foremost, Jeff is not only a top architect to many of my clients, he has also personally designed our basement, which has become our haven in our house.
That's great.
Which one of those things that I said, even with all of my mindset, I kind of know where things are going to be. Jeff came in with ideas that so were past my professional expertise and created something really great. But what would you say? I think a lot of people are a little intimidated about engaging an architect. What would you say are the real benefits of bringing an architect onto the team in a renovation?
Yeah. I think you touched on it there. I think the best value of an architect is that they will come up with more creative concepts than you would on your own, right? And I think one of the real advantages there is to, at a schematic design early on in the process, is to look at a bunch of different ways to solve the problem, quote unquote. What is it that we're looking to do with the project, the renovation or the addition? And you look at it in many purposefully different ways, and we'll present those ideas to the client and go over the pros and cons of each, right? Because there's going to be trade-offs for the different decisions you make. And the real goal here as well, it's really simple, just lines on paper. Let's look at all the options, good and bad, so that when you move forward, you feel confident in the decision you've made, right? We don't want to spend you X amount of dollars and just be okay with it. Or you're in construction at a while, like, well, what if we would have put this bedroom here or done this? We've answered all those questions, hopefully, before you even start. So you can feel really good about the project that you're doing and the money that you've spent, because it's a significant investment to do a project. And you want to make sure that money is spent wisely. I
actually will specifically remember, and this is why I have to share it, I was so tied to our basement remodel and keeping the bathroom near the plumbing lines, the sewage lines, because I wanted to keep the cost low on that aspect. So I hadn't even really thought about anything else. When Jeff came in and presented this idea of putting the bathroom all the way on the other side and said, hey, this modification with how you guys are doing the foundation is not a big cost. So I had myself, even a very well-educated person in the realm, had learned something totally new. And we absolutely went that direction because all of a sudden I got a bathroom with a beautiful window that I wasn't going to get anyways. And it turned out great.
Yeah.